The Kospi continued to fall and closed at 24.17 on Wednesday in the aftermath of the U.S. presidential election, in sharp contrast to a surge in Bitcoin. U.S. President-elect Trump speeds up filling key posts, which signals a hardline approach towards security and foreign policy. In the meantime, Tesla CEO Elon Musk is tapped to lead the new Department of Government Efficiency. The U.S. confirms the involvement of North Korean troops in Russia's fighting against Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region. It's November 13th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start with local stocks continuing to lose ground amid concerns over the implications of an America First trade policy under a second Trump leadership over in the U.S. Shin Ha-young takes a closer look at this phenomenon.
Despite the Trump rally in the U.S., South Korea's stock market is being left behind, struggling to recover since the former president's election win. According to the Korea Exchange on Wednesday, the benchmark Kospi lost over 65 points, or 2.64%, to close at around 2,417. This drop, mostly driven by massive sell-offs by foreign investors and institutions, marks the lowest closing since November last year. This comes a day after the Kospi dropped almost 2%, falling below the 2,500 mark for the first time in 3 months since a Black Monday for South Korea's stock market in August. The tech-heavy Kosdaq fell below the 700 mark, slumping by 2.94%. Experts say that South Korea's economic vulnerabilities are reflected in the local financial market, especially due to its heavy reliance on exports and sectors such as semiconductors.
It's because of long-term factors like interest rate reversal coupled with short-term factors, the stock market push in the United States given by the U.S. election. And then for Korea, there's threats of tariffs from the Trump administration, so that's a factor moving Korean stock market down.
He added that Korea's stock market will continue to slide weaker until at least President-elect Trump announces his economic plans. Amid investors shifting their focus to the U.S. stock market and cryptocurrency, Samsung Electronics share dropped 4.5% to 50,600 Korean won, their lowest price since June 2020. The stock has now fallen for 4 consecutive trading days. There are growing concerns that uncertainty in the semiconductor sector could increase when President-elect Trump takes office early next year. A proponent of protectionism, Trump is pushing to repeal the CHIPS Act, which provides subsidies to companies building semiconductor plants in the U.S. With Trump expected to tighten U.S. trade policies, the Korean won continues to weaken against the U.S. dollar. The won closed on Wednesday at 1,406.6, the rate rising by 3.1 Korean won. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
In contrast, Bitcoin is reaching a new high, but there are differing views on whether it'll continue to climb. Our Peyton Ji explains more on what Trump's second term means for the cryptocurrency markets.
Bitcoin is on track to hit the $100,000 milestone amid investor enthusiasm after Donald Trump's presidential election victory. Some analysts even say that Bitcoin could even hit this milestone before the end of this year. Bitcoin remained below the $70,000 before the U.S. presidential election in November, but rose 30% after Trump's victory, and is now near the $90,000 mark. Trump has vowed to ease the regulatory burden on crypto and create a reserve to hold the United States Bitcoin supply. During his campaign, Trump earlier promised that if he returned to the White House, he would remove the chair of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, who has taken an aggressive approach to crypto regulation. The surge in crypto prices also comes as Trump has kept his promise to offer Elon Musk, Tesla CEO and a crypto advocate, a role in the next administration. Musk has been appointed to lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which also references the name of the cryptocurrency Dogecoin that Musk promotes.
Well, as Elon famously said, he loves to pump, but he doesn't dump. He's a big fan of Dogecoin, which is a meme coin, which aligns with his philosophy that the most entertaining outcome, I guess, is the most likely outcome. And so it's not surprising, given Elon's connection to Trump, to see, Dogecoin doing well. And, what happens from here? Who knows? I mean, Tesla owns a significant amount of Bitcoin. They were one of the first major companies to acquire a large corporate stake.
But some experts explain that Bitcoin is in beast mode and warn investors of risk investing in cryptocurrencies that are riding high.
Although we do expect that there will be a role of crypto in the future of finance, it's unclear exactly what the global regulations will ultimately look like. So investors are still wise to be cautious and only invest in crypto at the fringes of their portfolios with money that they can be prepared to lose.
배은지, Arirang News.
On the local front, employment expanded at a slower pace in October, dropping below the 100,000 mark for the first time in 4 months. Moon Hye-ryun has more.
Employment in South Korea continued to rise in October, but at a slower pace than in the past few months. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that just over 28.8 million people were employed last month, up 83,000 from the same month the year before. This is the first time in 4 months that the country's job growth has fallen below the 100,000 mark, after it recovered to this figure in July and stayed there for 3 consecutive months. The slowdown comes due to a slump in employment in the retail, construction, and agriculture and fisheries sectors. Retail and wholesale jobs in particular recorded their highest decline in over 3 years, as they fell by 148,000 year-on-year. A spokesperson from the agency attributed this to fundamental changes in the industry as opposed to weakened domestic demand.
It's clear that the retail industry is declining primarily due to changes in the industrial structure. With the rise of online shopping, e-commerce, unmanned stores, and self-checkout systems, the retail sector experienced a temporary plateau for about a year, but is ultimately on a downward trend.
Employment in retail and wholesale has been falling for 8 consecutive months, and jobs in construction for 6 straight months. During a joint task force meeting with related ministries on Wednesday, the Ministry of Economy and Finance pledged to actively provide necessary support measures for industries with poor employment, including construction. On the other hand, the healthcare and education service sectors added jobs year-on-year by 97,000 and 84,000 respectively. South Korea's employment landscape is also presenting a mixed bag, with a notable divergence between the younger and older generations. While older workers are increasingly filling job vacancies, the youth employment rate continues to decline. Individuals aged 60 and above saw a significant increase of 257,000 in employment, while those aged between 15 and 29 years old fell by 182,000, marking 24 months of a consecutive decline. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Hanhwa Ocean has signed a second deal with the U.S. Navy to carry out the maintenance, repair, and overhaul, or MRO, of the 31,000-ton replenishment oiler U.S. naval ship Yukon. This follows the first MRO contract the major shipbuilding company had with the U.S. Navy for the logistics support ship Wally Schirra that it won in August. Yukon is expected to return to the U.S. Navy by April after the comprehensive maintenance. MRO services provide steady revenue for shipbuilders as it's seen as life cycle management. With the deal clinched, experts are seeing this as proof that South Korea has positioned itself as a key player with the U.S. Navy, which accounts for more than 1/3 of the global naval MRO market. Some of the incoming Trump administration's top defense and diplomatic authorities have been named, and their common ground appears to be America first. Lee Soo-jin explains who they are.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's picks for key positions signal a hawkish security and foreign policy stance for his second term. Trump on Tuesday local time tapped 44-year-old Fox News host Pete Hegseth, an Army veteran who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, as the Secretary of Defense, also a reflection of the importance he places on the way his message is conveyed in the media. This follows Trump naming military veteran and Florida Representative Mike Waltz, who had been mentioned as a candidate for the Defense Secretary position, as his national security advisor. Trump in a statement said that Waltz had been a strong champion of his America First foreign policy agenda and calling him a nationally recognized leader in national security, as well as an expert on threats posed by China, Russia, Iran, and global terrorism. Waltz, a 50-year-old Florida native, served for 27 years in the U.S. Army Special Forces and the U.S. National Guard, serving multiple combat tours in Afghanistan, the Middle East, and Africa before being elected to Congress in 2018. Waltz's selection indicates that the Trump administration will take a hardline stance with China, as Waltz has openly called China an existential threat to U.S. interests. And when asked about how Trump might respond to North Korea supplying Russia with weapons, he said that those shipments should be intercepted, also suggesting secondary sanctions on Chinese and Russian energy companies that fund North Korea. Trump also announced on Tuesday that he has nominated 69-year-old former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, a staunch supporter of Israel, as the next ambassador to Israel. The nomination comes as Trump pledged on the campaign trail to align U.S. foreign policy more with Israel's. He also chose another longtime Trump loyalist, 52-year-old South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, to lead the border and immigration crackdown as his next Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And Florida Senator and China hawk Marco Rubio is being seen as a likely pick for Trump's Secretary of State, further adding to expectations that U.S. foreign and national security policy priorities will take a tougher stance on global conflicts. 이수진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, tech billionaire Elon Musk and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy have joined the Trump team in an apparent attempt to drastically reduce the size of government. Choi Soo-hyung has more.
Elon Musk, the Tesla CEO, has joined the second Donald Trump administration. On Tuesday local time, President-elect Trump announced in a statement that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would lead a new Department of Government Efficiency. Trump stated that both will pave the way to dismantle government bureaucracies, slash access regulations, cut wasteful expenditure, and restructure federal agencies for his administration. He stressed this will be the core of the Save America movement. Ramaswamy, the co-leader with Musk, is an Indian-American biotechnology entrepreneur. He was a former Republican primary candidate but participated in the presidential race with Trump. Notably, at the Republican National Convention held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in July, he called for strengthening relationship with allies like South Korea to reduce dependency on China. The exact form of the new department is still unclear. However, Trump promised drastic change to the federal government. He stated that it would provide advice and guidance from outside of government to reduce spending and address bureaucracies. He also promised during his campaign to cut as many as 100,000 government positions, now a task assigned to Musk and Ramaswamy. Meanwhile, Musk, who has quickly risen as one of Trump's closest allies, is expanding his influence in the second term even more broadly with this new appointment. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, the U.S. has confirmed the involvement of North Korean troops in Russia's military offensive against Ukraine. South Korea's intel agency has a similar assessment. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
The U.S. State Department says North Korean soldiers are now fighting alongside Russian forces against Ukraine. Principal Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel confirmed Tuesday local time that over 10,000 North Korean troops have been sent to Russia, with most stationed in the contested Kursk region. Patel noted that Russia faces challenges in working with these forces, including interoperability and language barriers. However, experts in South Korea suggest that may not be a significant issue.
Because the front line is so wide, North Korean troops can be used wherever they're needed, either as a kind of vanguard or even as cannon fodder in frontline positions. So the language barrier likely won't be a significant issue.
Professor Zhang also explained the motivation behind Russia's all-out efforts in the Kursk region.
Essentially, they want to prevent any loss of their own territory while quickly neutralizing risks. Their goal is to secure more of the 20% of land they occupy without losing any of their existing territory.
The Russian and North Korean forces' offensive in Kursk appears to be accelerating in line with the re-election of President-elect Donald Trump, who has been promising to put an early end to the war in Ukraine. This has sparked concerns across Europe, with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte raising the alarm on Tuesday.
Russia working together with North Korea, Iran and China is not only threatening Europe, it threatens peace and security, yes, here in Europe, but also in the Indo-Pacific and in North America. We need to raise the cost for Putin and is enabling authoritarian friends by providing Ukraine with the support it needs to change the trajectory of the conflict.
Experts say Europe may be concerned as the U.S. could weaken its commitment to European defense, especially with the return of Trump.
If you look at the new nominee for the U.S. Secretary of Defense, who has been advocating for cuts to overseas troops, a reduction in Ukraine support could signal a shift in U.S. policy, weakening its commitment to Europe.
Meanwhile, the National Intelligence Service also confirmed Wednesday evening that North Korean troops deployed to Russia are, quote, assessed to be already engaged in combat. It added that these forces moved to the Kursk region over the past 2 weeks. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In modern warfare, where combat may involve fewer personnel, using unmanned aerial vehicles has become crucial. With this in mind, the Navy launched a fixed-wing drone in the first test of its kind from a ship. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
A prototype Mojave drone was launched from the 14,000-ton landing platform helicopter ship ROKS Dokdo. After flying for an hour over the East Sea, the drone safely landed on a runway at the Naval Air Command in Pohang. This marks the first time a fixed-wing drone, not a rotary-powered one, has taken off from the Dokdo's flight deck. The UAV was assembled on the ship and underwent a week-long testing before the demonstration flight on Tuesday. Such a warfighting experiment is part of the Korean Navy's efforts to establish integrated manned-unmanned combat systems at sea, aiming to secure and deploy unmanned aerial assets at the earliest possible stage. Fixed-wing drones have advantages in effective maritime operations due to their faster speed and wider operational range compared to rotary-powered ones. Up until now, however, as most fixed-wing drones need long land-based runways, their use on ships has been limited. Now, with this experiment, the Navy has taken a step forward.
This warfighting experiment was a highly meaningful opportunity to validate the operational feasibility of large fixed-wing unmanned aerial systems capable of taking off and landing on ships, given the growing importance of sea-based unmanned systems. It also offered valuable insights for developing optimized ship designs and necessary technologies.
Based on the results, the Navy is seeking advanced AI-based UAVs, aiming for a cutting-edge, tech-driven military force. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea, the U.S. and Japan began their second trilateral multi-domain exercise on Wednesday in international waters off Jeju Island. Warships and aircraft, including the USS George Washington aircraft carrier, will be mobilized for the three-day exercise. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said the drill was being conducted to bolster security cooperation against North Korea amid the regime's deepening relations with Russia. The agreement to conduct the exercises was reached during the trilateral summit at Camp David in August last year, and the first was held in June. In the Middle East, 2 residents in the northern coastal city of Nahariya in Israel were killed by rockets launched by Lebanon-based militant group Hezbollah on Tuesday local time. According to Israeli authorities, both of the fatalities were men in their 50s, and 2 other men in their 30s were also hurt in another impact. Some 10 rockets were launched from Lebanon and a few were intercepted. This latest assault came hours after a drone struck a kindergarten in northern Israel. No casualties were reported. Creating an inclusive social environment also means lowering barriers to cultural entertainment for people with disabilities. And our An Sung-jin has more on such efforts in this report.
검은 치마를 입고 도로를 힘차게 달려가는 소녀의 하반신과 그녀와 함께 달리는 검은 고양이.
This graphics pad helps Ko Mi-suk read comics. For the visually impaired, imagination is needed to interpret images. Some books are offered in Braille or through voice text, but this can miss out on the non-textual aspects.
Braille is not enough, and for audio narration, the character varies too much depending on the narrator.
That's where these interactive devices come into place. This is the world's first smart tactile graphics display. It was created through a project from the Korea Creative Content Agency LA. The display works by providing solutions to reduce information discrepancy. For example, with webtoons, it recreates comics as graphics. It also has a text-to-braille panel on the bottom for details that are not illustrated.
I try to focus on eliminating the unnecessary components to reduce any confusion. It's sometimes difficult to express exactly what we see through tactile display.
Users highlight the need to carefully select which aspects of content to interpret.
I think what's important is that the information gap between the visually impaired and those that aren't is reduced. The key for barrier-free is keeping the original content as much as possible, but also simplifying it.
Movies are another area where barriers must be removed so that everyone can enjoy content.
나랑 같이 영화 보러 갈래? If so, why not head to this barrier-free film festival where narrations are both spoken and written so viewers have a better understanding of what they're watching.
The 2024 Seoul Barrier-Free Film Festival screened nearly 40 movies. Hosted by the Korean Barrier-Free Films Committee, it works on producing, distributing, and screening barrier-free films.
It's not about making something for the disabled. Barrier-free is something that everyone can enjoy. Just like making subtitles for movies that we export, audio description or subtitles for the deaf should be essential.
Moving forward, all of those in the field have emphasized the need for more IT devices that can provide these contents.
If those in the movie industry can have more interest in a barrier-free environment, we will be able to have the same experience as others, especially establishing more systematic efforts for devices that can play barrier-free movies.
Through those efforts, hopefully in the future, everyone will be able to enjoy the latest blockbuster without barriers. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
It's not like late autumn. Instead, the daytime temperature in Seoul rose up to 20 degrees Celsius today. Tomorrow, which is the college entrance exam day, the suning, there will be no worries about the cold. However, the daily temperature differences are very large at around 15 degrees, so please take a warm jacket to avoid catching a cold. Rain will begin in the late afternoon on the west coast under cloudy skies. Although the amount of rainfall shouldn't be too large, there is a high possibility of rain in most parts of the country by the time the suning test ends, so you should take an umbrella. The rain will mostly stop on Friday morning. Tomorrow, Daejeon will start off at 9 degrees, Chuncheon, Daegu, and Gyeongju 8 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 20 in Gwangju and Gyeongju, Busan 21 degrees. More rain clouds will pass over the Seoul metropolitan area in Gangwon-do province on Sunday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.